Edward of Woodstock, also known as the Black Prince, was the greatest king that never was. He was a legendary medieval warrior prince of England, and even though he never wore the crown, his name echoes through history as one of the most ferocious warriors of his age. So how did this warrior prince become so famous? What were his biggest battles, and what might have been had he lived longer? Let's find out. Welcome to our channel, where we bring you the craziest and funkiest facts from human history. Some of the stories we cover may be offensive or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Edward of Woodstock, born in 1330, was the eldest surviving legitimate son of Edward III and his wife, Philippa of Hugh. By birth, he was the heir apparent to the throne of England, and the future of the Plantagenet dynasty rested on his shoulders. From the time he could walk, it was expected that young Edward would grow up to expand the dominion of England both at home and abroad. Like many young boys of noble birth, he was tutored at home, until he was deemed ready to take on the world. His mother served as regent while his father was busy with his own royal duties. But tragedy struck when Edward was just 9 years old and his mother passed away. The young prince had shown aptitude in learning, but his father decided that it was now time for his son to begin his martial training. In the 100 Years' War, England and France were at each other's throats, and Edward III wanted to use this opportunity to secure his place on the French throne. You see, Edward III was also the Duke of Aquitaine, and he had a claim to the French crown. But the French crown was already occupied by Philip VI of the House of Valois. Edward III saw an opportunity to unite the two kingdoms under his rule, but Philip wasn't making things easy for him. This conflict between England and France would go down in history as the 100 Years' War. Edward III's claim to the French throne was based on his grandmother's side of the family. Her name was Isabella of France, and she was the sister of King Philip IV of France. When Philip died in 1314, his widow, Queen Isabella, tried to marry her son to Edward II's son, the future Edward III, hoping to secure the succession for the child. However, Philip's brother, Charles IV, blocked the marriage and took the French crown for himself instead. Fast forward to 1337, and Edward III decided to take matters into his own hands and lay siege to the city of Nantes. With Edward III at the helm, England began to gain ground in France. The war was going well, and Edward III felt confident that he could soon call himself the King of France. But little did he know that his plans would change dramatically in the coming years. In 1338, peace talks were held between England and France, and for a moment it seemed as if the bloodshed would come to an end. However, the treaty didn't last long, and the fighting resumed in 1345. This renewed conflict would culminate in one of the most significant battles of the 100 Years' War. The Battle of Patel-Ove, at the time, was a small village in northern France, and it was here that the English and French armies would clash on August 29, 1346. The English army was outnumbered, with Edward III commanding a force of around 4,000 men, including a mere 1,000 longbowmen. It was one of the first battles to feature longbows as the primary weapon, and these bows would prove to be a game-changer on the battlefield. The French army was 3 times larger than the English, and they charged into battle with heavy cavalry and a sense of invincibility. As the two armies collided, the English longbowmen unleashed a barrage of arrows that decimated the French ranks. Many French knights were taken down before they even reached the English lines. Despite their initial advantage, the English were soon overwhelmed by the sheer number of French attackers. However, they stood their ground and fought valiantly. In the midst of the chaos, a young knight named William de Bohun made a valiant effort to defend Edward, Prince of Wales, who was only 16 at the time. When de Bourbon was asked why he fought so bravely, he replied, "For God, and for the love of my sovereign and my country." Although outnumbered and outgunned, the English held their ground. The arrival of reinforcements led by Edward III turned the tide of the battle in favor of the English. Together, they managed to defeat the French army. This victory was a turning point in the 100 Years' War and established England as dominance in France. It also solidified Edward the Black Prince's reputation as a fearless warrior and leader. The young prince displayed extraordinary bravery and strategic skill, proving himself to be more than capable of leading the English army to victory. But Edward's rise to fame wasn't limited to just this battle. In fact, he would go on to win several more after this. Following, Edward III continued to lead the English forces in France, expanding their territory and securing their dominance. He was involved in numerous battles and sieges, including the capture of Calais in 1347. This victory was particularly significant, as it provided England with a strategic foothold in France and a base from which to launch further attacks. Edward's military campaigns were not without their challenges. There were moments when the English were defeated and forced to retreat. However, his persistence and determination paid off. One of the most notable aspects of Edward's military career was his ability to adapt and learn from his experiences. After defeats, he would analyze the causes and make adjustments to his tactics and strategies. This flexibility proved to be a valuable asset as he continued to lead the English forces in battle. As the war progressed, Edward's responsibilities grew, and he was given more autonomy in managing military affairs. While still under the guidance of his father, he demonstrated a remarkable aptitude for leadership and strategy. At just 16, he was considered a skilled commander, capable of making sound judgments in the heat of battle. The Battle of was a testament to his abilities, as he successfully defended his position and contributed significantly to the overall victory. Although the 100 Years' War would rage on for another century, the Battle of marked a turning point. It established England's dominance in France and set the stage for further conquests. Edward III's victories in battle brought him fame and glory, and he was celebrated as a hero in England. The people revered him as a symbol of courage and strength. Bards and storytellers sang tales of his valor, ensuring that his name would be passed down through generations. And here's the kicker. If Edward III had lived longer, he might have become the King of France as well. But fate had other plans. On June 8, 1361, at the young age of 31, Edward, the Black Prince, died. The cause of his death was most likely tuberculosis, but some believe he was poisoned by his counselors, jealous of his popularity and power. Whatever the cause, his death was a great loss for England. His untimely demise robbed the country of a brilliant young monarch who had the potential to shape the course of history. Edward's death left a power vacuum in England, and upon his death, his son, Richard II, ascended to the throne. Richard's reign was marked by challenges and controversies. He faced opposition from both within and outside the kingdom, and his rule eventually came to an end with his deposition in 1399. England's path would have been vastly different if Edward the Black Prince had lived. He might have led England to greater heights, expanding its dominion and securing its place as a major European power. His military prowess and strategic acumen had already demonstrated what he was capable of achieving. Under his rule, England could have emerged as a dominant force in Europe. Edward's legacy lives on in the stories and songs that have immortalized his name. He is remembered as a brave warrior, a skilled leader, and a symbol of English pride. The Black Prince's story continues to fascinate people today, and his impact on history is undeniable. Had he lived longer, who knows what other victories he might have achieved, or what other legends he might have added to his already illustrious tale. So, what do you think? Do you agree with us that Edward was one of the greatest kings that never was? Tell us about it in the comments section below. And don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed this video. See you next time.